Well, welcome to the Pursuit of Peace podcast. Alethea, how are you doing?
Yeah, feeling a bit nervous, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you with us. So this is when I do the really awkward bit where I give a little intro to yourself and you like go, oh man, or give all the flowers. But let me let the people know, who you are and a bit about your life, and you can tell me as you go if you're happy about this and not at the end. Okay, so Alethea, you are proud to call yourself a Black Caribbean woman who loves others through being a wife, a mother to 2 teenage boys. Just checking you got 2, not 3.
Yeah, no, 2.
Fair enough. 2 teenage boys, and you're the deputy CEO of Coventry Watch Your Mind.
Yeah.
In a recent season, you spent 6 months as an interim CEO of Nottinghamshire Mind, which is a mental health charity also, leading the charity from one place to a place of greater stability, which is awesome. And you've had over 20 years' success of delivering, managing, and leading mental health services. And this has led to you even receiving an Honorary Doctorate from the Arden University. Yeah, it's like I feel like I need to tip a hat to that one. For your contributions to mental health services and social justice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And a little side funny note, which I know you enjoy, and a lot of people, especially locals in Coventry and the Midlands, will enjoy. You even got honoured as being one of the Lady Godivas, riding through Coventry City Centre on horseback.
That's right.
For your services to society. Wow. And centred in your Christian faith, you have a big heart for equity, which drives you to want to level the playing field, especially in areas of racial identity, gender, and poverty. Powerful.
Yeah.
Well, it's awesome to have you with us.
Thank you.
Welcome to the studio. Are you feeling comfortable?
I'm okay. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Yeah.
Awesome. And I've got a special shout out to you, which not many people will know. Guardian Ballers, where 22 Productions is enabling us to do this podcast. I would say you're the first person who said yes.
Really?
With Guardian Ballers with the vision. Some people will know that, Guardian Ballers came from a vision that I really believe is a faith-filled vision, but to be able to impact all types of society through mental health services for young people. And I remember that moment of having the vision, and the first time we had I think it was a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams in the pandemic.
It was, yeah.
And I'd say you're the first person who said yes.
Really?
To the vision.
Can I ask you a question?
You can ask me a question. Wow, we're flipping already. Yeah, go on.
So, why did you approach Coventry Warwickshire Mind?
It's a good question. Yeah. Maybe you know, or maybe you can't.
No, I can't remember. I can't remember it.
Yeah, so I remember having this vision of Coventry for Guardian Ballers and going, right, we're going to impact, mental health, different things in young people. And then someone once said to me, you can either go on your own, Kieran, and try and launch this thing on your own, or you can stand on the shoulders of giants. And I remember thinking, Coventry Watch Your Mind and yourself are the shoulders of giants. And actually, I remember the meeting. We talked about young black men's project and progression. But I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll share with Alethea about this thing called Guardian Borders, which is little notes on a Word document.
Yeah, because that's how we connected originally, wasn't it? Through Young Black Men's and the steering group discussion, wasn't it?
It's crazy. And here we are now.
Yeah.
That would have been in the pandemic 2020. Everyone remembers it. And literally just over 4 years later, here we are.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're going to journey more of that, I think, as we go through this podcast. Are you ready for this? I have a little game called Bucket, Bin or Bargain. Okay?
Bucket, bin or bargain.
Okay, so I'm going to give you options. If you think it's like bucket, so like in basketball, if you score a swish, like the basketball goes, the ball goes through the basket and it's a nice shot. They call it like a bucket,
okay.
Scoring buckets.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing, okay? If you're going to bin it, it's like, it's a bad thing. Like it's rubbish, put it in the bin. Or a bargain is, I'll do it or I'll get it or I'll do it only if it's cheap.
Okay,
you with me? So bucket, bin or bargain.
Right.
So like the bucket's like, it's always a winner, I'd spend maybe even big money to do that thing or... Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go with it and get to know you a little bit.
All right.
So you got to loosen up, ready for this one. So first one is an Egyptian desert holiday. How would you vibe with that? Bucket, bucket, bin or bargain?
Bargain. I think.
Bargain. Okay, so you'd go and get some sand between your toes, but only if it was like a cheap one.
Yeah. It was not on my it's not on my top list of places to go. No.
But you don't mind the heat. And
I love the heat. I love the sand.
Nice. But not necessarily an Egyptian desert.
Yeah.
Cool. Next one. This is one I thought about the other day. You ever been to like Viva Brazil or any other Brazilian really nice restaurant, which has other names, where they come with the skewers and they have like meat on it? So the food one is a chicken heart. So have you ever had that where they literally have all these hearts on that skewer? And I've had it a couple of times.
Yeah, I've
Bucket,
seen it.
bin or bargain?
That would be bin.
Bin. Why, you
In
don't
fact,
fancy?
all that meat on there.
Yeah?
Not because I'm vegetarian, just because it's not cooked well enough for
Okay,
me.
you're like a well done sort of, okay.
Yeah, I go to the salad bit.
Yeah, okay. Fine, okay. Next one, drink. Green tea.
Okay. Green tea's okay.
Yeah, drink it often, much?
Not really, no. Probably
bin or
bargain.
Bargain,
Yeah.
I've never really drunk green tea in my life. Every time
Yeah.
I think of green tea, I just think of it makes you need to pee.
Yeah.
If I drink water, I just want to be hydrated. I don't have to pee all the time. So I don't really go there. That would
No.
probably be bin for me personally.
Yeah, would
but
it?
Yeah, it would be. Clothing.
Okay.
Scarves. You know, it could be a warm scarf, a dressy one.
Yeah, bucket, yeah.
A bucket. So you're like, your go-to, it's your go-to.
Not go to, but
Okay.
I like to accessorise.
Okay, nice accessories. Cool. Transport then, one for you. Hot air balloon. Little, ride from one place to the other. Hot air balloon.
Probably bargain.
Bargain.
Yeah, I would never say no to anything, I don't think. I don't know, no.
But only if it's a
yeah,
cheap
but
one.
it's a bit high up for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not really relying on that.
You like the firmness of the ground, right? Okay.
And a basket now.
Next one, health. So I thought I'd throw this in there. Laser eye treatment. So if your eyes were struggling and I don't know if you wear contacts or glasses or anything,
I would
but
do it.
you would do it?
Yeah.
You'd spend big money to do it if you needed it, you think?
Whether I'd want to spend money on it, I don't know, a bargain.
Yeah,
maybe.
bargain. There's a lot of bargains, I can tell you. Like things, the cheap.
Sitting on the
cheap
fence
ones,
with
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
that's what it is.
Okay, next one. Swimming with turtles.
Bucket.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You'd spend some nice money for that nice experience. And,
Yeah.
I put this one especially for you. You know why?
Did you? Why?
Because when I was in Barbados just recently,
Oh, did you
I
swim with turtles?
turtles,
Ah.
literally touching distance, and I thought,
Ah.
Barbados,
Yeah,
Alethea's
yeah,
here,
Yeah.
the what do you call it? A what's a Barbados person called?
Bayesian.
A Bayesian
Yeah.
heart, and I had to, bring it in. So,
Yeah.
and then final one, because you're a mental health pro
Okay.
expert. Give me 3 type of mental health experiences, and I'm going to test you here, and where you put them in. So, what sort of mental health experience would you put in your bucket? Like, you'd spend big money for it. Mental health thing where you put it in the bin. Like, you're not a big fan of maybe that therapy or different things, and then one for the bargain. And I'm stretching you on this one. But
Ooh. Controversial. This
it is a controversial one.
especially for the bin one.
Yeah.
I was just like, is this the end of my career?
You could just think of a quirky one that someone's doing in like, I don't know, a circus down the road.
Okay.
It could be like a fad type mental health thing as well,
This might be an unpopular view
Okay.
because lots of people love equine therapy, which is
so
actually
horses,
really good.
yeah.
But for me, having been on a horse
Yeah.
and rode through the streets of Coventry, that one for me would perhaps be a bin.
So
But
that one
not
more
to
so
say-
it more so ticked your bucket list and will never
I've
come
done
to
it.
it ever again.
I've
Yeah.
done it, and I won't be doing it again.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So that's bin.
that's bin.
Okay. We won't see you with horses.
So bucket.
Bucket was something that's always a winner for you.
Something that I would always do without a shadow of a doubt, if I needed to, was counselling or some form of therapy.
Okay.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay. And bargain.
And then bargain.
Something that maybe it wouldn't be your go-to, but if it was a cheap, it was on offer, you might go in for it, Free session here or something.
So maybe something that's that's a difficult one.
How about, let me throw a couple of things out there. Hypnotherapy, even like music therapy.
Yeah.
What's it,
I would so when I talk about therapy or counselling,
Put it all in the same sort
I'd
of.
put any of those types of things into it, depending on what I needed at the time. I think maybe something that I'd probably have to bargain with, and this is the bit that's controversial because it is important and it's there and it should be used, is probably medication as a first resort, but that's not to say that it's not an important and something that people do need and can benefit from.
But not necessarily as a first resort.
Perhaps not for me. I'd try perhaps other things first, the therapy or...
I like that. I can see you as like there's a new government, so maybe you're going to be like the health minister or something. It was I like that. It was very PC.
Diplomatic response. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, it's good to have you with us on the podcast. Are you feeling more relaxed now? You're getting in the flow. Okay, so this is the Pursuit of Peace podcast. And the question we ask everyone first is, what does peace mean to you?
This is a difficult one, I think. I think for me, there's something around the alignment of, my physical self, the way my internal body works, and the way. So I live a lot in my own head, being a problem solver, an analytical thinker. Everything goes on inside my head, so I can spend a lot of time up here. And so peace for me feels quiet and calm. And there's a connection, a synergy between the way I feel internally and then the noise, I would call it. And when that seems to quieten down. And that can be in any space. That could be in the middle of a concert or sitting quietly by myself or at prayer time. It doesn't have to be, in front of a river or sat on a beach. I think it's when the noise and the balance feels right.
Interesting. So say if someone else was to come sit on the other chair next to you right now, and you were to say, and you would say to them, "Let me offer you peace," and they said, "What do you mean by peace?" How would you describe that to them, the third person in the room?
Yeah, I think it's when it feels quiet, when you just feel calm, when you feel comfortable. Just in normal terms, for me, it's like I said, it's a connection between the body and the soul and the mind, and those aligning. And
awesome. I'm just in my mind. I'm thinking of things clicking up, click, 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 and then literally the aligning. But cool. So here's something about peace. I always try to bring this up in an episode. So we've got a quote this time. The quote is most recently attributed to Vivian Green. The quote goes like this. You might have heard this before. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain.
Okay.
I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. And dancing is interesting because you just talked about peace being quiet. But when you hear that quote, what does that talk to you about when you consider that?
Well, when I say quiet, I mean that from my own personal perspective. That's because I live in noise a lot of the time. And that's because of my own internal noise, the way in which I think and the way in which I problem solve. So when that is quiet, then that feels like that's peace that's been given to me. That quote there for me is a great quote because it is about learning how to weather the storm, isn't it? We can't all, and we will never ever think that we're going to be in a place where everything is perfect, and you've got to learn how to find good moments from every situation, isn't it? And it's raining, but you get an opportunity to try out a new coat or to stand under shelter and bump into somebody that's there at the same time, or to try out some new wellies or something like that. It's an opportunity, isn't it? And I think when we wait for that alignment, it doesn't always happen.
It's really powerful when you said when it's raining, it gives you the opportunity to go under a shelter and meet someone you didn't think you'd meet. It made me... I've spoken to people recently where they've talked about like cancer, for example, or hospitals. And it just made me think that, if rain is a bad time, some people might think when it's raining, this is a bad season of my life. But actually, because it's raining, I go into the shelter and I meet someone new that I didn't meet before. Or because I've got cancer, I go to that hospital and I meet that inspirational person on the ward. actually that time where it's raining becomes almost a sunshine time for you and a time of inspiration.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. And it's seeing opportunities, isn't it? Um, you know, and sometimes that's not when we're laughing and dancing and having fun. Sometimes that's actually, you know, when we're at our lowest point, actually. But there's a lesson in it. There's something that we rediscover about ourselves. So it's been open to that, I think.
Mm. So you talk about rediscovery. For you, would you say there's been any times in your life where you've been at a low point or a challenging point and you've gone, actually, I've learned something new about myself or discovered something which was almost dormant until this bad point kind of came along? And
So there's a few. There's quite a few, and I suppose you have a few experiences when you get to my age. The one thing I think that probably taught me a lot was I've spent, you said in the intro, many years in mental health, and there was an opportunity. So we, as an organisation, Come to Watch Your Mind, have been delivering children and young people services for over 20 years. And I've been involved in developing and delivering those services, and it's an actual passion. You know, young people and young people's mental health is a passion of mine. So we had this opportunity to retender for a new service. So I've done this plenty of times before. I've been quite successful in it. I thought I see myself as being quite good at this, and retendered for our children and young people's services and lost the bid. And at the time, the contract was £70,000, but what we were applying for was £500,000. And it also created an opportunity to partner with other people. So this was quite a low point. So we lost, and I saw it as my own loss, you know, something that I could have been better at. And, you know, I spent a lot of time, perhaps not a lot of time, but I did spend some time thinking about how I could have done things better, really struggling with the decision. I was fearful for staff's jobs, for the organisation's reputation. There were lots of things that I suppose I was grappling with, and I went into a meeting with some young people, actually. It was our annual general meeting, and a young person stood up at the front, and it was not related to anything that I was doing, but he said this thing which was, don't let success go to your head, and don't let failure go to your heart.
Well,
And that message was absolutely, for me at that time,
timely.
yeah. And I think it was one of those moments where it reminds you that that it's one of those dancing in the rain moments, isn't it? It's like, so how do we make this an opportunity that you know, opens doors for other people? And within maybe 6 weeks, I'd already generated £650,000 for the organisation. So
for that exact services that you thought you lost 500,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where, for me, it was a blessing. It was almost an opportunity to actually not, this is God's way sometimes, isn't it, of saying that is not for you. And that was why I then felt that we, you know, that opportunity wasn't for us. That wasn't our time.
Wow, that's really powerful. And I even just thought, like, sometimes it takes strength to dance in the rain. And I thought I reflected in my life of how there's times where you literally have to go, have I got the joy to really dance in this tough season? Or do I need to stir up the joy, speak out the joy? Or actually, is this something where actually I do need to be indoors in this season because it's raining, and it would take a lot. And I think that's something where we're constantly navigating, like you say, acknowledging how we feel at that moment.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the rain stops us from navigating and journeying, and it's super powerful. And I think it's really interesting because you're obviously in a sphere where you are in mental health services. You sit in a really high seat in leadership, and I think it's really interesting the question of like what peace looks like for people in your community and sector. So you've got this thing where you're delivering mental health services, but you have mental health too. And it's like, are you this mental health savior and suddenly become a robot in your own emotions? And how do you think people navigate it in mental health services?
Well,
Their piece.
I think you have to purposely look for it.
Interesting.
I don't think it's easy. You know, if you just sit down and think that peace comes to you because you deserve it, or, you know, because you're a believer, or because you work hard, or, you know, that's not true, is it? And we're fooling ourselves. So we have to look for peace, and that's something, and calmness, and you have to think about your mental health. It's something I work at every day, because I hear and see and experience lots of challenges and lots of problems. So then I need to make sure that I'm gonna, manage myself in ways that helps to keep myself well, and helps to keep me in a place of peace as well.
That's awesome. And I love how, for yourself, you said before this recording that you were wanting to level the playing field for lots of different types of people. And, you talked about racial identity, gender, poverty, and, from even what we're doing with Guardian Borders, I've become even more attuned to statistics where, these stats such as someone who's from a lower socioeconomic background is 3 times less likely to access services. It might even be more now, I'm sure you'd know the stats and those. And leveling the playing field to me sounds really abrasive. I think when I think of playing field, like I play football, right? So you use this analogy. If like the football pitch has loads of bumps in it and you want to level it, like you've got to get some machines out there to literally level those bumps, things which are uneven. So I guess in your community, in your sector, what does it look like to level the playing field for people through that racial identity, within gender, within poverty? It's a big piece, but what does that look like, and how do you navigate that really?
Yeah, I think you have to again be purposeful. It feels like a theme, but one of the most important things for me is to understand within the services and within the organisation that I work in, is to understand who is using our services, and then really start to pick out the gaps, and then they're the groups that you try and lean into. So I could sit back and say, we have supported 34,000 people last year as an organisation, but then I know if I was to really start to unpick that, then there is a very small percentage of key groups that will never be able to access services. So my job, and this is where I am very passionate about, my job is about finding who they are and then thinking, how do we reach them? And it can't be the same way that we reach everybody else. It's got to be different. So we've got to go into spaces where people feel comfortable and feel safe. And that might make me feel unsafe, but that's where they feel safe. And then we've got to make sure that our faces represent the faces that we're trying to reach, or that we're speaking in the same way as the communities we're trying to reach. So for me, leveling the playing field is, and it's really important, I think, in my position, is not to think, well, I've done it and that's it. But actually, those conversations around somebody who's starting out and needs a yes, how does that help us reach those communities? Because Guardian Ballers will reach young people that Coventry Warwickshire Mind may never reach. So it's about making sure that we connect with different grassroots organisations and working with them to try and reach other people that we can't.
It's powerful because I'm thinking in my head about this equality, equity dimension. And some people go, this, as long as everyone's got access and it's all inclusive, it's all good. But you said to me before about you're really passionate about equity.
Yeah.
How would you unpack that? What does equity mean to you?
Yeah. So equity for me is a bit like what I was just explaining there. It's we can't say that everybody needs the same thing, For a long time, I've been in mental health for quite a while, and for a long time there was this kind of idea that we approach everything the same, because if we don't, then that means we're excluding people, and then people won't feel as though they belong. But actually, by doing that, what it absolutely did was excluded people, because people will not walk into buildings, and people won't sit and have a conversation in a room because they don't want to. And that's not the way everybody connects. So if it's having a conversation over, a game of basketball, or if it's walking down and having a conversation with somebody. I remember this one event, and it wasn't me that did this, but I love this example, which is where a young person came into our building. This was when I was managing services, and he couldn't walk through the door. He would never have walked through that door. And a staff member went outside to him, spoke to him, and he loved graffiti. But you can't do that. That's not socially acceptable. So
unless you have a wall.
Unless you have a wall. And we had a wall. So we got some spray cans, or he bought his own, and he started to spray this wall. And he spent 6 weeks spraying that wall. And for 6 weeks, he had a mental health intervention because that member of staff stood by the side of him and spoke with him for the whole time that he was there. And then that young person went and did a workshop with some other young people that had just finished an anger program, and they also graffitied the wall. And it became this thing that happened at the end of every intervention, program. Sorry. So equity for me is about leaning in and doing things differently, and not expecting everybody to be able to access the same stuff.
That's a really powerful story. I feel like I want a spray can right now. Just let me just spray that somewhere. Spray that story.
Have you seen the visual? And I don't know if it's easy for me to explain, but there is a visual where there is a a baseball game.
Yes,
have you
the
seen
equity
that?
equality.
Yeah. So you've got a young. I love this visual, but you've got a young person, and this is the idea of having everything exactly the same. But the eventual kind of visual is that once you remove that barrier completely, everybody can see. So yeah.
So in case someone's listening to the podcast audio, let's try and explain it,
Okay.
right? So this, when I literally asked you that question, I had that visual in my head.
Yeah.
They're looking at the baseball game, but equality says, the guy who's 6 foot tall and can stand on feet has the same opportunity to see the game as the person in a wheelchair, as the young person who's literally like 3-4 foot tall.
Yeah.
But the issue is the fence is about 4 foot high.
Yeah.
So it means that the one in the wheelchair and the one which is young, whatever, can't see.
Yeah.
But that's equality.
Yeah.
But equity says that actually where the person in the wheelchair is, you break down the wall there so they can see the game.
Yeah.
Where the short person is, you put like a box under their feet so they can see. And then everyone has the opportunity to be involved and see the game.
Yeah.
But they've been given other additional opportunities and provision so they can all access. So it's not the same, but it's equitable.
Absolutely.
And it's given them a way in. So
Yeah. And then the final part is removing all barriers altogether, so that everybody can access. And that's our job. That's what we should be there to do, is to remove the barriers, but to also lean in when people need something different. So
it's powerful, super powerful. So we're gonna do a little self-care piece, if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's easy for you because this one I'm gonna just do a lot of talking and guide you through some stuff. But so in every episode of the podcast, we'll do a self-care piece. And in the self-care piece, we'll try and take yourself and listeners, watchers on a journey to help your well-being. So what I'm going to do today, I just made up this random name.
Okay.
You're going to tell me that actually people do this anyway. It's called something different, but I'm calling it a guided recollection of senses. Okay, so it's kind of a reflective piece, guided meditation type piece. To take you to a place, but to really tune in some senses from a special moment. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So it's easy for you. All you need to do is close your eyes. You don't need to say anything. And I'll just guide you through some reflections. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So this is a guided recollection of senses. So close your eyes and take a few breaths, um, and step out of your current room and find yourself now walking into another space of another moment of a really, really sweet time, an experience of something that you really enjoyed and had a really positive impact on your life. Imagine you turning back the clock and you're walking through a new door, a door which kind of takes you back in time. As you step through that door, you're walking into that room or that landscape, or maybe even that vehicle for that really special moment that you had in your life. As you walk through that door and walk into that space, I want you to imagine the feelings, the emotions that you experienced at that time. With the feelings of joy, of happiness, excitement. I want you to look around. Is it just you in that place, or are there other people? Can you see the faces of those other people that were there on that day or that moment? Maybe it's just you, and if it's just you, remember the people you were with before or after that moment. Now, in that place, in that space, take another breath in and a breath out. And now remember the things you could smell, or try and recall the things you could smell in that moment, or maybe the things you trying to imagine you were smelling at that moment. Whether you were inside, maybe there was a certain smell of that space, or outside, maybe it's the fresh air. Now, what things can you hear in that moment? Is there music? Is it quiet and silent? Are there adults or kids talking in the background, or someone maybe even speaking to you? What can you hear? Now focus in on what you can see. You've probably been looking at things already, but what colors can you see in that moment? What can you see on maybe your face if you look in the mirror? What can you see on other people's faces? Are you seeing smiles? Are you seeing expectation? Maybe you're seeing a sense of peace on your own or other people's faces. Maybe you can think back in this recollection, and you're thinking of the clothes you were wearing, or the type of feel on your skin, the shoes you're wearing, maybe the sleeves, or the things on your cloth on your back. Take a few more moments. You're going to leave this positive time, this positive moment soon. What senses do you still want to journey with more? Do you want to smell something more, see something more, hear something more, feel something different? Now, however you entered this space, you need to exit that space. Go through the door or go through that space. Now take a few more breaths in and walk back into the room where we are now. When you're ready, open your eyes. There we go. We went on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a good journey?
Yeah, it was good.
Now we're back. I find it's nice sometimes, you go through life and you go through like those good experiences, and unless someone asks you about them, you don't reflect on them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Took me a while to get into it. I think it does always because of the noise.
Mm-hmm.
But But it's not. Yeah, it's nice to do it. It's a nice exercise to do. Yeah.
Awesome. And I guess I was also, when I was preparing for this episode, I thought about asking you a question. How do you reflect? You know, there's been some guests where we've talked about journaling, we've talked about peace and how we get to that place, and you know that we were just reflecting in some way, right? And I just wondered how you reflect, or do you see any power in reflection when you're wanting to journey towards greater peace?
What in terms of yeah, I mean reflection for me. So in terms of kind of processing what I'm thinking, yeah, I do reflect. I walk away from here and reflect, think about lots of different things, probably things I could have said, you know, maybe shouldn't have said. But I like to write poetry. So I do like to, particularly if I'm struggling with something, it's helpful for me to be able to see words on page, and because it's so creative and free flowing, that is a real good exercise for my self-care, I think. But I reflect, so yeah, you know, I try. I'm not always so great at it, but just, you know, being grateful before I go to bed, and really thinking about some of the small wins. Again, I suppose they're more self-care type things than actual reflection, but yeah, I like to sit and have a think about ways in which I could have done things differently or not at all.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah, interesting. And so I love asking this question to people, because I find when we journey for our life with peace, like for me personally, it's such a valuable thing. But there's just this question which I find rocks everyone in different ways. And I phrase it as, what is the wrestle that's worth it? And what I mean by that question is, you know, we go through life and we find sometimes we have to fight for things, and you have to exert effort, or we have to journey through things. And, you know, in all the seats you sit in, and also the hats you wear as even a mum, as a wife, and all these different things. What would you say in your life as you journey towards peace, that which wrestle is worth it?
I think it's stepping out of your comfort zone. I think anything that kind of challenges me to do things differently, I think they're always worth it. So things like this, a podcast, you know, or, you know, talking in front of large groups, you know. I remember doing my kind of honorary speech, you know, that was difficult, you know, that was a difficult time leading up to it. But it's always worth it. You always come away afterwards thinking, I'm glad I did that. And oftentimes I think it's because you learn something about yourself, and every time I realise that, you know, I was supposed to do that thing. So opportunities, when they come my way, absolutely, I tend to say yes first and then trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
Because I believe that they've been, you know, directed to me for a reason. But there is often a wrestle, because it's not something that I naturally want to do. So therefore I have to, I just have to really trust and rely on, you know, on something more than myself. Okay.
So I find it really interesting how you talked about the wrestle and how it's worth it to step out of the comfort zone. And journeying with you and knowing life with you, you talk about integrity and authenticity and kindness and integrity, and you talk about your faith a lot. And how would you say that step of faith aligns with your stepping out of the comfort zone in your life? And it might be for someone who understands what stepping by faith looks like, or it might be for someone who's never took a step of faith, you know, whether it be Christian faith or any other faith. What would you say your step of faith looks like in your life when you're pursuing peace?
So coming from a faith point of view, I mean, for me, you know, particularly walking into this space, you know, this morning it would be walking here as we sat down here, a little quiet moment before we started. For me, is absolutely. So words are important to me, and being a peacemaker, you know, being mindful about the impact and the things that you leave people with, particularly with words, they're very powerful. So for me, from a faith point of view, it's absolutely about God's blessing around how he wants to use me in particular moments. And oftentimes it's about, trusting that the words will come, that I don't need to necessarily remember the things that I want to say or be able to answer all the questions. But that's the faith, isn't it? That's knowing that that information will come. And it will be authentic to me, because that's who I am, and what will come out of my mouth will be authentic, therefore, because that's who I am. So it's trusting that's what'll happen.
Awesome. So we're going to come into land very, very shortly, but I want to say one way in which you've inspired me.
Okay.
I don't say this for everyone, but I think when at the beginning we talked about, when I gave a little intro, I said you said that you're proud to be a Black Caribbean woman.
Yeah.
And I've seen you in lots of spaces where there aren't faces that look like yours. For me, as a mixed race guy, my dad's being from St. Kitts as well. You've inspired me to say that my face can fit in other spaces. And I guess I wanted to just literally give you the mic to go, if someone feels like they've got a face like yours, or they feel their face doesn't fit in a certain space, what would you say to them to inspire them?
Okay. I'm not sure. For me, you have to remember, I think, that it's not your problem. I've learned, I think, over the years to just be proud of the fact that I'm a Black woman. And there are things that are different about me. And knowing that when I walk into spaces, that will always be the first thing that people see. I think when I arrive in those spaces, again, there's always a reason why I'm there. I don't always know why, but there is a reason why I'm there. So I have to feel confident that that's where I've been positioned at that time. I think for other people, just know that that's where you're supposed to be. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. And to find, I've been in other situations where I say to people, if there's an opportunity you want and you think you don't fit, then because I think oftentimes as well as a Black woman, there's this kind of idea that I perhaps will not fit in a particular space, or I will be the only one, and I'm going to feel different, and I'm going to feel uncomfortable. But as I said at the start, that's not my problem, actually. That's for everybody else to get on board with. And every space that I go into, I think people then learn a different way to be. I suppose for me, just go in, just be proud, be brave, know that that's your space, and you have a right to be there just like everybody else. And I just think when you walk in there with that kind of confidence, and it's not to say I have that all the time, because everywhere I go, I scan the room. And you always have to think about where are you going to sit, and how are you going to present yourself, and how is that going to be perceived. But I always take myself back to the point that I'm in that space for a reason, and then I have to just move with confidence because of that reason. So it's worked for me so far.
It's worked very well, I can tell. So, and I think it's really powerful for anyone. Someone could be a white British male walking into a room where they feel out of place. But actually that boldness and that confidence and seeing that they can uphold that space and bring inspiration in that space is also just inspiring to everyone. So
I mean, it's important for anybody when they are a minority in a room. Okay, so this could be for anybody, couldn't it? It doesn't have to be about somebody's colour. I've been in spaces before where, you know, I'm at a family I'm in a family space, and there are, you know, individuals around who are maybe the only white person in that space, and they are welcome the same way as I'm welcome in spaces. We should go into those spaces feeling confident that that's where we're supposed to be. And actually, you know, most times you've been invited, you haven't just turned up, you know. That's for anybody. That doesn't matter whether it's about you know, your background, your race, your ethnicity. It's about whether there's a disability, anything, anywhere where you feel like you're a minority in that space. For me, it's just about feeling confident that you are there for a reason, and then just owning that.
There's power in the invitation.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
power in
yeah,
the
yeah,
invitation
I
also.
like that.
So, hey, final question.
Okay.
What does the pursuit of peace mean for you?
The pursuit of peace. Okay, so I think it's something that we're all journeying for, isn't it? It's a very popular subject, isn't it? Because there are lots of books that have sold out as a result of pursuing peace. It might be taking us back to that original quote that you mentioned, but it's that idea of just, and I use the analogy of the horse because that's where I said I'd been, but there's something about getting back on and just continuing and keep pressing forward. And the pursuit of peace for me is knowing and acknowledging, like, when you feel at peace, you know, why was that? It's a, you know, the exercise. What did you feel? What did you see? What did you experience? And telling yourself, I feel peaceful now. This is a good space. I feel good. And trying to find that, but not always. You know, not always going to find a
navigation,
peaceful place. Never, yeah, not always. So it's just that, you know, when you kind of slip off. For me, I mentioned about that alignment. When there's a disconnect, it's trying to work out what is that, and trying to work out how to protect your peace, and then trying to find the balance again. That was a very long
Alethea,
answer. Yeah.
great to have you on the Pursuit of Peace podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm inspired, I'm empowered, and I'm sure lots of the people have been as well. So thank you for being on a journey with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.